He's got to send a Louisiana Divebomb. He's got a Louisiana Divebomb.
Come on, Reddick, you got this.
Pump it. Here's the pump and run. Go. Louisiana Divebomb.
Alrighty, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this. This is the second episode of the Louisiana Divebomb podcast for the second season, but overall this is episode 40. I am feeling under the weather. I have COVID. My weekend's been terrible. Started off great, so we'll recap a little bit with the duels Thursday. I had a parlay for Bubba and Austin Cindric to win the duels. So I might have been the only one that was okay with the decision of them throwing the yellow like 15 feet before the line and Cindric being ahead of Eric Jones at that time, because I had a parlay for both guys to win both duels, $5 to win $605, which is ridiculous, and I had a straight bet for Bubba to win the duel as well. So I was the only one okay with that, and I thought, you know what? Well, this was before the day began. I was like, yeah, you know what? Let me go get some Buffalo Wild Wings because it's the weekend. NASCAR's back. I'm hype. And then I had a bunch of that unhealthy garbage on Friday. Had some Wendy's as well. Had some Arby's, Buffalo chicken sliders. Now, you might be asking, hey, why am I naming all the foods I ate? Well, it's the reason that I ended up in the ER on Saturday because I made a lot of unhealthy choices on Friday, and it affected me severely. I ended up in the hospital with a small kidney stone because one of the reasons that can happen is due to consuming highly salted foods. So I had a lot of sodium within 24 hours, which was not healthy. It was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. From 4:30 to about noon, whenever they actually were able to get to me and give me the proper treatment to fix it, I was in so much pain. It felt like someone had stabbed me in my lower left abdomen. It was just sharp pain. No matter what I did, no matter what position I was in, I was just always in pain. And then they gave me some pill which helped, and it gave me Toradol, which subsided the pain quite a bit. So moral of the story, take care of your body, because I didn't do it for a long time. Like, I'm still I'm not super overweight, but I've just had a craving for junk food recently, and it ended up putting me in the hospital. So that's why there's no ARCA video, if anyone's wondering, because I was literally in the ER for a good portion of that race. I got to leave at like a little after 1:30 maybe. So by the time I got home, all the wrecks had stopped. I still have a bit where Cleves McFarland is up in the booth talking about him being in the race and whatnot. So anyway, enough rambling. So I'm sick. I have COVID too. So excuse me, that didn't help. It's windy as ever. I feel like the roof's about to blow off this place. So if you hear any noise in the background, it's either the wind or it's the dehumidifier that's going off in the back. But yeah, we had a Daytona 500 weekend. I already started off with the duels. So that ended up well for me. Truck race happened on Friday night. We had a good bit of racing there, a good bit of wrecking. The package was really phenomenal. They did some tweaking to the packages because the trucks were hard to handle, but the guys were still able to keep a straight line for the most part. I had money on Johnny Sauter to win. He was up there at some point, but then things just didn't work out in his favor. So we had wrecks galore in that one as well. I mean, not too many major ones. Let me go ahead and pull up the racing reference. Sorry, I'm a bit of a mess this morning. Oh, by the way, it's cold as hell too. So I'm I'm freezing here, and the only way that the dehumidifier can work is it doesn't work in warm climates. It works in cold. So that sucks as well. So let's go ahead and pull up the results here to see what all went down. So like I said, we had a couple of small wrecks here and there. And then obviously towards the end of the race is when things started to get a little bit wacky. We had a big one with about 16 to go. Collected a good bit of trucks involved. Michael McDowell was in it. Rajah Caruth was in it. Jack Wood was in it. I don't know how Jack Wood still has a ride in NASCAR. Because, I mean, every time I'm watching him, he's either in the back or he's wrecking. He'll qualify good occasionally, but he won't finish well. But yeah, Michael McDowell wrecked. Matt Crafton was in it. I'm about to sneeze. Holy cow. Oh, this is bad. Oh, okay. Think we're good? Think we're good. Nope. Oh God. Oh, I had to turn the mic off for that one. That got really loud, really quick. So yeah, this all started. The wreck with 16 to go. This all started with just bad bumps being given out. Corey Heim, Parker Kligerman, and then right behind him, they're like squirrely. So Ben Rhodes or Ty Majeski, one of the two ThorSport cars, gave a bad bump to Jack Wood, created this whole mess. Turned the 07 to Michael McDowell. Turned Rajah Caruth. Tony Breininger had a race to forget. Really, she was caught up in 3 separate incidents. Yeah, and she hit like 3 trucks involved. She hit the 71. She hit the 91. I think she hit another truck, but she was okay. She worked her way back up to the front, but then got shuffled out and then got caught up in the shenanigans. But yeah, things started to shape up for Ben Rhodes and the ThorSport trucks. They were fast. Like they were the trucks to beat. Now that's not saying there were any other trucks in the field that weren't fast, but they were the trucks to beat until the end of the race when they got shuffled away from each other. And then Parker Kligerman kind of took over. Tanner Gray was up there as well. Lane Riggs was up there in the late going. Yeah, so it was going to be a fun little duel to the finish here with Parker Kligerman and Ben Rhodes. Thought we were going to have a photo finish, maybe have a wreck. So they take the white. They got a third lane coming. Like I mentioned, the ThorSport trucks were fast because Johnny Sauter and Ty Majeski, both ThorSport trucks, they were working together. And then down the backstretch they go for the final time, and things just unfolded badly. Trucks were getting squirrely. Bad bumps were being given. Sauter got loose. And I don't know if this really had a factor in it, but to me, I feel like it had some sort of factor because after they crossed the slow truck on the apron, I'm not sure who that was. Maybe that was Breininger. After they went past, that's when things started to go a little cuckoo. Because then Sauter gets a bad bump, takes himself and Ben Rhodes out. And then the rest of the field they're trying to corral it. Lane Riggs loses it. Hamrick wrecks. They're all wrecking in 3 and 4. And then they're coming to the checkered flag. But off turn 4, they threw the yellow. So that really just put a damper to all things. And at the time of the yellow, Parker Kligerman was in front of Corey Heim and Gio Ruggiero. And he was declared the winner of the truck race for about maybe 40 minutes until he failed post-race inspection for ride height being too low. So he got disqualified. Corey Heim now is the winner of the race, which was kind of shocking. I don't think anyone saw that coming. He did finish second in last year's race, so I kind of wasn't surprised that he finished second at the time. But then the DQ thing came out, and time. 2025, the favorite to win the championship wins the first race at Daytona. Gio Ruggiero. He did not have a good qualifying effort, but he had a great finish at second. He was up there at the end when it mattered. Ty Majeski third. Grant Enfinger fourth. Justin Haley finished fifth. He was the favorite to win this race. Chandler Smith's back in the Truck Series full-time for Front Row Motorsports. He finished sixth, where he started pretty much. Daniel Hemrick, seventh, even though he was caught up in the wreck. Jason White, the Canadian Jason White, finished eighth. William Sawallish, ninth. And then Frankie Muniz, I think he had a very underrated performance because he qualified 14th. He stayed out of trouble for the most part, got through the wrecks when it mattered the most, and he ended up finishing 10th after that disqualification from Parker Kligerman. So it's a top 10 finish for Frankie Muniz in the Rayome truck. So that's very cool to see. Timmy Hill's racing. Timmy Hill was in this. He finished 11th. Trying to look at some other notables. Andreas Perez, he made the move from ARCA to trucks full-time. Finished 14th. Stormin Norm Benning finished 16th. He made the show, and he's the oldest driver to finish on the lead lap in years. I can't remember who. Johnny Sauer still finished 17th, but he had a chance to win it on the final lap, and I had $5 on him to win. Would have been 85 if he won, but oh well, live to see another day. Mentioned Tony Breininger was in the race. She had a race to forget. She finished 28th. She didn't DNF, but trucks that did were Rajah Caruth, Nathan Bird, Clay Greenfield, Tyler Ankrum, and Caden Honeycutt. So yeah, even though the trucks wrecked out, Parker Kligerman still finished behind all those because it is a disqualification. Now they are appealing it. Will they win it? I'm not sure, but only time will tell. Oh, I gotta sneeze again. Oh my God. I'm always so curious as to why there's so much mucus buildup whenever you're sick, because like it's just non-stop for me at the moment. I'm not in a good state right now. So we got through trucks. I guess the next one is ARCA if we're going from when the race began. But do we really even need to talk about ARCA? I mean, Cleese McFarland was in the race. He got caught up in 3 wrecks that weren't any of them weren't his own fault. Wrecks galore. That was just the ultimate state of the sport for ARCA because it's terrible. I think there were like a handful of cars who didn't get damage in it. Who won the race? Butterbean Queen. Brendan Queen won the race. Congrats. Elio Castroneves, despite being caught up in like 4 wrecks, finished 5th, and then he got wrecked after the checkered flag because the guy behind him didn't have his radio working and didn't know that the race was over. Ridiculous. That's ARCA for you. So, yeah, just a bunch of wrecks. We need some reevaluating to do for ARCA. But on the Xfinity side of things, we had the Xfinity Series opener at Daytona. Austin Hill was a force to be reckoned with. Again, I believe he led the most laps. He led 56 laps. And looking at my graphic over here, yes, he did lead the most laps with 56. But he had a mechanical issue. So his rear end, for some reason, was leaking fluid. And it was just, the longer the race went, the more and more it seemed like that he wasn't going to be able to finish the race because it was all over his car. It was all over the camera. It was all over the tires. So I'm pretty sure it was behind or on the front of whoever was behind him. like their car, their windshield, because fluid was just leaking out constantly. And then when they made their final pit stop of the race, they said they basically killed it and said, "Yep, we can't do this anymore because there's just too much fluid. They can't fix it. I mean, they could, but I mean, not gonna." Sorry, it's super windy. They could fix it, but they weren't going to win anything, so they called it a day. So Austin Hill's streak at Daytona is over, at least for the spring race, or the first race of the season. We had some minor wrecks before we had the big one to kill off the race. Steven Gisbergen, that's not... that's Connor Zilic in the 88. Oh, boy. All of the JRM cars were involved in wrecks, like Junior Motorsports as a whole. Sammy Smith, Justin Allgaier, Connor Zilic, and Carson Kvapil. Kvapil was able to overcome so much. He was caught up in that first wreck, like 6-7 laps in the race. He was able to rally through for a pretty solid finish. Mentioned there were some minor wrecks, and then towards the end it got big, of course. So then we went to overtime finish. So after Austin Hill went down, the next man up was ironically his teammate from the same stable, Jesse Love. He led the second most laps with 30. He was able to pull through and lead the final 18 laps. He was untouchable. But so was that 21 the Batilis problem. Like, Austin Hill, for example, like, he could draft someone, or he really didn't even need the draft. He could just drive right past someone and clear them without the need for draft, and then he would start pulling away, which is ridiculous. So RCR has something figured out for these super speedways for sure, because, I mean, Nick Sanchez was up there too in the 48, which he replaces Parker Kligerman. He was up there for a good bit until he was caught up in some tomfoolery as well. So I mentioned we have Rex galore. We head to overtime. They're coming to the white flag. Allgaier spins. Josh Williams goes up and starts levitating over several cars. And then they threw the yellow out, and that was it. The race was over. Yeah, so I think the only races that didn't end under caution were obviously the 500, ARCA, and the first duel. So, yeah, about half the races that we had over the course of the weekend ended under caution, and fans were displeased. They were already displeased with the way duel number 2 ended. They were displeased with how the truck race ended, and then they were complaining because they didn't throw the yellow out quick enough before they got to the finish line in the Xfinity race. Mentioned a lot of cars were involved in that last lap wreck. I mean, Ryan Sieg was in it. Sieg, gosh, something's got to give for this man in order to win, because I felt like besides the RCR cars, he had a pretty strong car. He was up there in the top 5 for a good portion of that. Then got shuffled out, wrong place, wrong time towards the end of the race, and that was it for him. He got caught up in that grass, which is already wet from rain. Him in the 42. I had to sneeze again. My God. Oh, I am going through it this weekend. I'm going through it right now. Not as bad as it was Saturday, but still. I almost said Leland Honeyman. I think it was Leland Honeyman in the 42. Could be wrong. No. Wait. No, it's Anthony Alfredo. I'm getting this wrong. Anyway, caution came out. Race was over. Jesse Love won. Sam Mayer finished second. Sheldon Creed third. So the 2 Haas factory team cars finished second and third. Carson Kvapil finished fourth. I mentioned he was caught up in that first wreck. They completely had to redo the rear of the car, but he finished fourth, the highest of the JRM cars, so solid on him. Taylor Gray in the 54 for Joe Gibbs. He finished fifth. He's full-time this season. Harrison Burton, P6. Jordan Anderson, P7. Dean Thompson, 8th. Jeremy Clements, 9th. And Patrick Emmerling Rounds out the top 10. Just missing out on that top 10 was Matt DiBenedetto for Viking Motorsports. Finished 11th. Christian Eckes, he made the jump from trucks to Xfinity for Kaulig. He finished 12th. Baccarella 13th. Bilicki 14th. Joey Gase 15th. So basically the back markers got through unscathed throughout that wreck. Jebediah, as I like to call him, Jeb Burton 16th for the Golden Corral cars. So no kids do not eat free, sadly. So Allgaier finished 18th. He was caught up in that wreck. I think barely. He was able to finish, though. Ryan Sieg, 19th. He didn't finish. Neither did Josh Williams or Leland Honeyman. He's in the 70, okay? I don't know why I thought he was in the 42. That's Anthony Alfredo. So Honeyman 21st, Alfredo 22nd. Justin Bonsignor was in this race. He finished 25th, even though he was caught up in a wreck. Greg Van Alst, he for sure would have hated ARCA if he was in that race, but he wasn't. He was in Xfinity. He finished 26th. Zilich 27th. Sawalich 28th. He's full time as well. Retzlaff moved to the 4 for. It says Johnny Davis. I don't think that's right. It said Alpha Prime. I could be wrong. And then Garrett Smithley, Chris Wright. Oh yeah, I didn't even talk about Chris Wright. That dude needs to step away from NASCAR. He never should make another start. If he, for one, isn't going to blame it on himself for plowing in to Josh Bilicki, like he plowed into him, and Bilicki still finished the race. He finished 14th. Yeah, that's inexcusable. I said the only reason that could have happened is if his brakes went out. He said that they didn't work out. They didn't break. Said that the brakes weren't the issue, but he blamed it on his spotter. Like, no, we're not doing that. We're not blaming the spotter for someone who doesn't hit the brakes when they're coming to pit road. I mean, he came in like a missile, just completely destroyed Bilicki's car, lifted him off the ground, but Chris Wright ruined his own car. That was terrible. That was one of the worst things I've ever seen. And for him to double down on it by not taking accountability whatsoever, and shifting the blame to the spotter, I guess, for pitting then instead of like a lap earlier or a lap later or whatever, that's terrible. I would not sponsor him if that's what he's going to do in a race car, because that's ridiculous. The rest of the results: Hale, Perkins, Nick Sanchez, Kyle C. He never really got going. He had a rear end issue as well. Brandon Jones wrecked. Shocker. He's with Joe Gibbs again, so he could tear up more of his equipment. And then Daniel Dye finished dead last for being caught up in that lap 5 wreck. So that was Xfinity. Now we'll shift focus to the Daytona 500. And oh boy, what a weekend it was. What a race it was. Oh God. My God, I need to get this over with because I want to go back to bed. I just like to ramble on. That's why I made this podcast. And for those that are actually listening, I appreciate you more than ever right now, because I don't know how you're listening to this. I'm just rambling. I'm a rambling sick man talking about NASCAR. But nonetheless, we'll talk about the Daytona 500. Donald Trump once again was in attendance, so you know what that means. Something bad's going to happen. He got 10 laps in, and then it started raining. Hey, cars are going back. Nope, it's raining again. A little delay. Like almost 4 hours delayed just from rain alone. But then eventually we got back going, and, you know, things were all right for the most part. I think we got through the first stage. No, we didn't, because this ended the first stage. Denny Hamlin, Zane Smith, Josh Berry collected in a crash in turn 2. This was like with 3 laps to go in the first stage, so that ended it. Logano won the stage, shocker. And then on the restart following that, Logano had some issues in his car. I'm not sure what it was, but they eventually came down and repaired it. But on the restart, that outside lane didn't go. They started stack it up. And it caused the end of the race for quite a bit of drivers. Castro Neves was caught up in that wreck again. Chastain was in it. Briscoe, Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Busch, Riley Herbst and Martin Truex Jr. caught up in calamity because of Logano's mishap. So Chastain, Castroneves, and Truex were out of the race after that. Barry and Zane Smith, they would go on for a little bit longer, but then they would exit the race as well. And then immediately after the restart after that wreck, we had a debris caution, which, fortunate for Logano, he was able to get back on the lead lap, which is ridiculous. But then we went 45 laps to the end of the second stage. Then we had another debris caution, and then that's when shit started to hit the fan, where we had a big one down the backstretch at the cause of Ricky Stenhouse and Joey Logano. Shocker, two of the more aggressive super speedway racers wrecking the field. Who would have thought? Not me. I definitely didn't think that. Let me go back and watch this again. I want to dissect it bit by bit. So, really, and I think I'm the only one who's starting to blame on the 4-car for this, because someone noticed that someone in the middle lane was backing up quite a bit, and that was the 4 of Noah Gragson. Why? Because he left a room for Joey Logano to enter on the middle. So Logano took it a little bit too late. Stenhouse went to block, and then they just kept going at it. Stenhouse kept trying to pinch, but Logano kept trying to force his nose down there. He got into the 8. He's trying to fit his car between his teammate, Ryan Blaney, and the 47, Ricky Stenhouse. It's not working. He's still forcing his way. He door slams Kyle Busch to the inside. Then he turns the 47, who turns the 12, and then sets off this chain reaction crash. Custer was in it. Kyle Busch was in it. Noah Gragson was in it. A good bit of drivers were in it. But then we got going again. And then arguably the highlight of the weekend occurred down the backstretch. Christopher Bell leading the race. 5 laps to go. He gets a bad bump from Cole Custer. And then, bam, into the outside wall hard. Comes back in the field. Boom. Into Ryan Preece. His car starts to do a wheelie. The front of the car's off the ground. It keeps going, up in the air, upside down, and flips hard into the safer barrier. I mean, what a wreck. What a wreck. And then there's the bad wreck that happens every time Donald Trump attends a NASCAR race. At least in the 500. Remember 2001? Yeah, he attended that one. We all know what happened there. 2020? Yeah, Ryan Newman, sorry for your sacrifice, buddy. Donald Trump came to the 500. He had to choose someone. And then, Ryan Preece, sorry, my guy. I'm sorry that it had to be you again. Oh, God. It always seems to be that one guy. Someone mentioned it. Elliott Sadler, Ryan Newman, Ryan Preece. It's always that one guy who gets hit with the terrible wrecks. This was a first for me because I didn't think this would be possible. Getting hit with the front of the car and then flipping in the air because of it. I don't know what it is about this car that these guys don't understand. The underbody of the next gen is flat. So when it gets air, that air just flies right through. It just flows right through it, and it helps lift the car off the ground. So I don't understand. This is an issue that's been with the next gen for quite some time. We understand it. Apparently NASCAR doesn't. That's why these cars are still flipping in the air. So whenever we're at a super speedway race, I'm kind of not shocked anymore that we're getting a flip. I will say I was shocked for this one because of the way that it happened. It's a very unusual flip to happen. And why is it happening? Because of the underbody of the next gen. It makes it so easy that we're starting to invent new ways to flip over. Holy cow, I'm just realizing in this replay, William Byron was right in front of Ryan Preece. So he was so close to being caught up in this wreck. But Bell came down into Preece, who got into Eric Jones, who had a great onboard shot of the 60 flying in the air. Kyle Larson was in it. Suarez was in it. Bubba was in it. Allgaier was caught up in that as well. I think Chase had a little fender bender in there. Oh, yeah, he had a good bit of a fender bender in there. But, I mean, Ryan Preece that's the highlight of the weekend for me, really. Just the next gen getting hit. that also played a little bit of a factor into how he flipped too, because I think he would have been fine. Looking back at this, I think he would have been fine had Erik Jones not been there. So I'm looking at it again. He gets hit. PREECE gets hit. He's up in the air. And then he hits the 43 of Erik Jones, which sends his car even further into the air. I'm going to look at this one more time. So PREECE gets hit there. Car does a wheelie. And then it essentially ramps off the right front of Erik Jones's car. Now, this has been the thing in the past with the next gen, but this is when the wheels come together. This one, it was like right below the door number, and you can see where the underbody is starting to break up a little bit because of the hit that the 60 had on the 43. And that car is just going up, 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 and basically 3 wheels are off the ground, and then as the thing's still up in the air, it's starting to turn sideways, and then once that happens, I mean, you're just along for the ride as a passenger. And Mike Joy mentioned something about roof flaps not keeping the car on the ground. Roof flaps couldn't do that. I mean, roof flaps don't work that way. Only when the car is spinning backwards, that's when the roof flaps deploy. By the time the car was up in the air, the roof flaps didn't even have a chance because it was on the front. The front of the car was off the ground. The rear of the car was still on the ground. Then the car turned sideways, and then it flipped. You can see the roof flap deploy a little bit, but that's not going to do much. That's not going to do much at all. I mean, nonetheless, it's a wild wreck that NASCAR needs to look at, and they need to put a stop to this because Ryan Preece mentioned it, that he was fortunate to walk away again, but it's starting to get to the point where that's not going to be guaranteed because, again, this is the second time he's flipped in 3 years at Daytona. The last one, I think, was way worse because he barrel rolled 12 times in the grass. He had a black eye from that, so that definitely was worse. But I mean, still, this is a nasty wreck for anyone. And I mean, Ryan Preece is in it again, and then gotta remember he's in the 60 car for Roush. What do we all remember about from the 60 car in the past? Whenever they ran it in the Xfinity Series, it was the cursed car. That car was in so much carnage. The car also flipped at Daytona. Chase Briscoe was in it when it flipped. I'm pretty sure. Damn. It was either Briscoe or Cindric. I can't remember. But that car flipped at Daytona in turn 1 and 2. Starting to lose my voice. Oh, thank God for water. Okay, so I'm going to try and wrap this up. My voice is going. So the PREECE wreck happens. We get to the green-white checker again. Okay, so we get to the white flag. Riley Herbst spins. He drifts, actually. He drifts through the front stretch grass, and it's a shame because he had a good shot at having a good finish, but the yellow didn't come out, and NASCAR was like, all right, cool. We get to race this out. So Cindric's leading on the last lap. Denny Hamlin has a chance. Denny Hamlin's going fake him outside, then go... Actually, no, he stayed outside. Then Cole Custer fakes inside, like he's going to push Denny. Then he goes outside, so we're 3 wide coming to the finish here. Down the backstretch, and then for some reason Custer just turns down in front of everybody, and then everyone's wrecking again. Oh, just the calamity. Just another wreck in turn 3, and then people are thinking, okay, the yellow's going to come out. No, because NASCAR has heard people bitch and complain about when they throw the yellow so many times this weekend. They're like, all right, fuck it. We're just going to let you guys race to the finish because everybody complains. And people are like, of course, the one time they should have thrown the yellow out, they didn't. Nonetheless, the car that managed to get through unscathed was the 24 of William Byron. So back-to-back Daytona 500 wins for William Byron, the 5th driver, I believe, to do so. I think Richard Petty, Cale Yarborough, Sterling Marlin, Denny Hamlin were the only other 4 drivers to do so. Add a 5th one to that, being the 24 of William Byron. Let's see if there was a replay of how this wreck occurred. All right, so the big one on the final lap. Cindric leading on the bottom. Denny Hamlin in the middle. Cole Custer, yeet. I'm going to the outside. I think he's going to side draft the 11 because the 19 of Briscoe went with his teammate instead of the 41. And then that kind of started. Custer just kept coming down. The 19 gets hooked by the 01 of LaJoie because of that. Into the 2 of Cindric. Custer into the 11. LaJoie spins. William Byron and Tyler Reddick escape unscathed through that. And, yeah. Chaotic Daytona 500. It was a great race, despite the wait. So, yeah. William Byron wins again. Tyler Reddick finished second. Didn't expect that. He never does well in the super speedways, but then again, he won at Talladega last year, so I guess that's on me. But for the most part, he doesn't do well in super speedways, so this was a little bit of a shock. Also a bit of a shock, Jimmy Johnson. He finished third in the 500. He was caught up in a wreck. He got through that last one on the apron, and he came through and he finished third for Legacy in the Toyota, the Shaq car. Shaq paint scheme. They had the collab with it. He finished third in that, so that's awesome for him. Chase Briscoe, even though he was caught up in that wreck, he was able to get through, finish fourth, the pulsator of the 500, so good finish for him to kick off the season. Same thing for John Hunter Nemechek again. He just kind of appeared out of nowhere and stayed up front, stayed out of trouble, and he finished fifth. This seems to be a pattern for him on super speedways, and I won money because of it, because I bet on him to get a top 10 finish. Alex Bowman finished sixth. Cool. Blaney seventh. Cindric eighth. Allgaier ninth for Junior Motorsports in the Traveler Whiskey number 40. So Dale Jr. and Chris Stapleton. Solid showing for them. And Chris Buescher finished 10th. McDowell rallied through for 11th. Eric Jones 12th. Despite having a car launch off of him and flip. Ty Dillon 14th. He had a great speed weeks. Some other notables. Riley Herbst was 17th. He had that good save, but he was also up front as well. It seemed like he was going to possibly have a shot at a win. Nonetheless, a top 10 finish, and the left rear of his car was just flapping in the wind for the entire time after being caught up in a wreck. So good on him. Stenhouse finished 18th, still raced through. Kyle Larson 20th. 21st was Custer. Corey LaJoie, 22nd place finish. Corey LaJoie, it seemed like for a moment, was a legit contender to win the Daytona 500. He led laps, and it seemed like, oh my God, Corey LaJoie, the long shot, gonna win the 500. He had a good chance at getting a good finish as an open car, so that would have been crazy if that happened. But he made his presence felt for sure, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see him back at these super speedways. I'm not sure if he's returning next week to Atlanta, but nonetheless, a solid showing for Corey LaJoie, even though a lot of people hate him. Looking through at the DNFs, we had Cody Ware, who was caught up in a wreck. I think that was the last lap, too. It seemed like he had it escaped, but then he got clipped. Bubba, that second to last wreck, he was in the back of Larson whenever he was getting into PREECE and whatnot. So, yeah, that's unfortunate. Hocevar had fuel pressure issue. He didn't make it to the finish. Christopher Bell didn't finish. Obviously, Ryan Preece didn't finish. Kyle Busch, Logano, Zane Smith, Josh Berry, Truex Jr., Castroneves, Chastain, and Allmendinger went out early with an engine issue. So, holy cow, the amount of lead changes in the 500 were ridiculous. I think this is the most in history. We had 56 lead changes. How many different leaders? I don't know, but it's a lot. I mean, holy Toledo. I've never seen this many different leaders in a race ever. I mean, it's literally taking up the whole screen on my phone. That is crazy. So, we get through the Daytona weekend just for another Byron win. I'm not complaining. Byron's my number 2 guy. We'll see if this continues heading into Atlanta, but I think the Penske cars might have something for everybody else. That's just a hunch I have. I think Austin Hill definitely wins Atlanta for Xfinity, just because it was a mechanical issue that cost him. If that didn't happen, he likely would have won the race, so I'm probably going to throw a good sum of money on him again, and I might do the same for Jesse Love just in case something happens. As for trucks, that's up in the air. Corey Heim, probably again. Could be wrong. But yeah, so glad NASCAR is back. What a way to kick things off. Yeah, and thank you guys for listening. If you listen to this sick man ramble on about NASCAR for over 40 minutes, I mean, that's me doing this is ridiculous enough, but having people listen to it even more ridiculous because I'm a sick man. I'm a sick man. I love NASCAR, and I love the support that you guys have been showing on the videos, on my YouTube, and through the podcast. So thank you very much. And I'll see you next week. Hopefully I'll be better by then. But until then, peace out.